right, we are back, baby. Back for number 4. How's everybody doing today? Back with super good Wi-Fi. So I don't anticipate we're gonna have any dropouts today. I'm super happy about that. We're out in the mountains, out in nature right now, so couldn't ask for a better spot. So going, Hoxton. So yeah, let's see here. Yesterday, I just edited the irrigation video. It's gonna be a 25-minute video, all about doing drip irrigation, both emitter line and then like a drip tape irrigated setup for your raised beds. So I went through timers, um, uh, pressure, flow rate, main line, like everything that you would need to know to get started building a drip system. And that video is going to come out tomorrow morning, and that's going to be the last one in the 5-part series, all about your basic gardening skills. And yeah, it's been really fun producing these videos this week. It's been a lot of work getting them all out, but I hope that it's going to help some people really get going in their garden, and definitely been enjoying the live streams as well. I always enjoy talking with you guys, and I always learn something new every time I do these too from you guys, because I definitely don't know everything, that's for sure. I still have a lot to learn, and I will never learn everything. No one ever will. That's what's so cool about nature and farming and all this stuff. You could spend your whole life just on one of these subjects and never reach the end of the knowledge. So it's always a good time. Hey Lorraine, how's it going? So today's live stream, yeah, we could talk about anything. We talk more about irrigation today, or whatever you guys would like. But all the links, if you guys missed any of the live streams or you missed any of my 5-part series about your essential gardening skills, they're all down in the description below so that you can check that out later on. Hey Tony, what's my favorite chili and eggplant varieties? Well, number one, I don't really like eggplant, so I never grow it. I've only grown it a couple times just for fun. I forgot there's a Japanese variety that I grew. I like that one. Like if you cook eggplant right, I do like it, but it's something about the texture of it. It just really bothers me. For chilies, I think the Thai chilies are awesome. You get a bazillion of them and they're super spicy, so they just go a long way in any dish, or if you want to save them. I love jalapenos because they're at a very good spiciness level for me. And the hottest I like to go is maybe habanero, but that's like the absolute max, man. But if you're gonna make some dried out hot pepper or something, the habanero is sweet for that. And I've done some different like kind of heirloom specialty Italian sweet peppers before, and I'm totally blanking out on the names of them. But they're your like longer, larger ones they're real sweet. Yeah, but I don't know the names though. I'm not like peppers aren't something I really grew extensively because I don't feel that they're that great of a micro farm crop. They're not that great profit wise. Hey Wasim, how to protect tomatoes from bore holes or holes? Are you talking about gophers or something, or an insect? Everest, just because they seem to last overgrown, because when I bricks tested them, which tests the sucrose level, I got like a 9, which is excellent for tomatoes. So I definitely love the Sun Golds. When it comes to like your larger slicers, the classic beefsteak is awesome. I really like purple Cherokees, um, mortgage lifter. That's a really prolific slicer. Oh, and chocolate cherries. I love chocolate cherries. Those are really cool. Those ones have a double flower set that comes out on them. So you get a lot of tomatoes, and they're larger, so they weigh a bit more. They just have really great flavor. So not as sweet as the Sun Golds, but yeah, the cherries or black cherries, those are like one of my favorites for sure. It's a both. Best way to harden plants off from inside to outside and then transplant in the raised beds. Um, well, for me, I always grew things outside because I lived in San Diego, but I did have a greenhouse where I started things. But if you can transfer, if you're in a really cold environment, if you can go from an inside heated place into like just like a greenhouse with plastic, that'd be nice. And then from there, take it to outside. But generally, for hardening off, the best thing to do is just let them sit in either partial sunlight um, or put them like in direct shade. Like if it's midsummer, really hot, I'll even put my starts in just in direct light and then partial light and then full sunlight and then put them out and plant them. But usually in about a week, they're totally good to go. And that's how I always did it. Also, if it's inside of a greenhouse or something like that, it is good to have a breeze or a fan, something like if you have the doors open on your house, to like it'll move the plants back and forth and help them to stiffen up a bit more and make them stronger. That's another reason to have them outside eventually. Hey Dylan, for sales for me, I think that cherry tomatoes sell the best as far as profit. You can do those little quart green size baskets. Find the shade here. Those you can sell for like $3 to $4 a basket, depending on your market. The heirloom large ones, they sell really well. People love them. People want them for sure. Like the only issue I have with the large ones is I just feel like there's a lot more that go to waste from an insect getting into them or sun scalding or something goes wrong with them. Like just one little insect bite and the whole thing's ruined basically. And I also don't like that if you sell at a farmer's market, people come and then they want to touch all the large tomatoes and they bruise them and damage them, and then someone else will pick them up and be like, oh, this is bruised, and then they don't buy it. Whereas the cherries, they sit in a basket and then it goes straight to them. So that's for me why I kind of prefer them. Um, and I feel like they grow like for a longer season too. Happy Thursday! What's up, Cameron? Cameron's a new patron. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, and I've been loving you having it in the streams every day, participating. It's been fun. Sam B, been seeing you in the streams too. What's going on? This person says I use the Earthway just for spinach and radish. I haven't had too much success with other seeds. What do you direct seed with the Earthway? Well, everything I grew in my urban farm, I direct seeded. So my salad mixes, so tatsoi, kale, beets, like even growing beets for like the greens. If I say arugula, all the lettuces, bush beans, carrots, cilantro, dill, radishes. You can really get everything to work with the Earthway. It's not the best. The Jong JP1 is definitely the best single row seeder on the market. It's going to be perfect. Like you can get the singulated seeds where you'll never have to thin or anything like that for your carrots or beets or radishes. But for me, like on the radishes and beets, just because it overseeds, like it didn't matter that much because the larger ones would just grow up first. When I look for my beets to harvest them, you can almost guarantee that the largest ones are going to have the biggest leaves that are popping up and above the rest of the beets. If you check that one first, typically it'll have the larger root. So the overseeding, like it doesn't do that much like damage because you're just going to be able to harvest more, but over a longer period of time. It won't be like a perfect crop in, crop out, but I didn't have a big problem with that. Tony, what are the most profitable crops I've found in the best varieties? Salad mix, heads of lettuce, microgreens are the top three greens for sure if you have the market for that. And for varieties, I never did Salanova. A lot of market farmers do the Salanova and they harvest by hand with a knife. You can harvest Salanova with a greens harvester, but I always wanted to use kind of like the more loose leaf type lettuce so that I could use my greens harvester because I didn't want to do any extra effort. I wanted it to be faster. So what did I do? Butter Crunch is like a bib lettuce I liked a lot. Loya Rosa is a good red. In terms of like my kales and stuff like that, I would just do vates, like a curly beets. I did tall bunching beets for my loose leaf that. Arugula, I just did like a slow bolt uh, type of arugula. Um, Heads of lettuces though. Little Gem is a fantastic little romaine lettuce. They're kind of little mini heads. You could sell them for like, $3 each, or you can throw two in a bag for like $4, or depends on the size of them. But I like the Little Gem a lot. I don't know. There's a lot of things I could say about that. Rick's asking, I'm 30 years old. Should I buy or rent a rototiller for the backyard instead of a shovel? Definitely just, if you're just, right now, you're just working on one yard, just rent it. I was able to rototill a whole like 2,500 square foot area in a couple hours, and you can see my video on that, my channel. I can't remember what it's called, but like something about starting the market plot. And I use that to break up the clay and rock ground, get it loose, and then I formed my beds with it. And I'm a fan of using a rototiller to start your market garden off, unless you just want to go no dig from the beginning and bring in a bunch of compost, which is also another excellent way to start a market garden or just a regular garden. I just saw Charles Dowding. He just put out a video like 3 days ago talking about doing a no dig garden where you throw out compost, or sorry, you put out cardboard and then boom, compost right on top of that. The cardboard snuffs weeds, adds more organic matter, and then you have compost that you can just grow straight into and get your garden going. I mean, that to me is like the best way to start a small farm or a small garden. If you're going to be doing in the ground, if you're doing raised beds, then it's not as much of an issue. Doug Nance, if you're starting a 4x8 with four 4x8s and zone 7, what would I plant? If it's to feed you guys, then yeah, I'm keep talking about these high profit crops. I would tend towards things that are going to be higher calories, maybe have some protein. Greens, you don't need that much space. Like in a 4x8 box, you could grow all your greens for all your salads, whether that's kale, chard, collards, lettuce. You could do all your herbs. You could fit all the greens that you want in one 4x8 box, and then the rest of the three I dedicate to probably potatoes, beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, um, and then some root vegetables for sure too. Like if you want to do carrots, radish, beets, those store pretty well too. Especially like carrots, you can store them for a long time. Potatoes, obviously, you can too. Um, and I'd keep in mind if you're planting for your family to like you can kind of I'd separate the boxes out into date to the maturity. So like that greens bed, a lot of those, like half that bed, if it's in lettuce and herbs and things like that, you could crop those out and then throw in some other crops. Whereas like your kale and chard, that'll go all season. Your tomatoes will go all season, so it'll be harder to plant more stuff. So you want to have like a constant cycle of crops coming in and out if you can. So look up interplanting. I've got a couple of videos on it. There's lots of great videos online about interplanting and utilizing a lot more space by combining different plants together, and then just thinking about what plants are going to come to maturity quicker than others. Separating, like in that greens bed, have half the bed that's going to be grown in 30 to 40 days, and then the other half is like kale and chard that's going to be there for a long time, so that one half you could replant with something else like some radishes and beets. And then you have another bed that a month ago you had planted more seeds of radishes and beets. And anyways, I'm trying to describe how to have like a constant harvest. Oh, this is a good one. The pros and cons of, where'd it go? Pros and cons of growing fruit trees from seed versus cutting. So there's some fruit trees that you can grow from seed, and there's some that you really shouldn't. Now, like a loquat, for instance, I believe that is it's called a true seed. So if you plant a loquat seed and that grows up, it will have the same genetics as the tree that it came from. But things like an apple or a stone fruit, if you plant that seed, you don't really know what you're going to get, what genetic variety that you're going to get. Now, when they're trying to create a new variety, that's what they do. They plant like 1,000 seeds, they let them all grow, and then they select which trees had the right attributes that they want. And it's like, a decade or two, like 2 decade long process to do that. So I don't recommend planting from seeds. So the benefit of grafting or growing from like a cutting, if you're doing, grapes or a pomegranate, fig, those can be propagated by cutting. Or so then grafting for apples, citrus, stone fruits, those are usually grafted because then you can select the correct genetics that you want. It's guaranteed. So when you take that cutting and you splice it onto a rootstock, you're getting a genetic clone of the tree that you took the cutting from. And I have one video about grafting apples on my YouTube channel if you want to learn a little bit more. Or if you look up John Wilson Nursery, they're one of the best nurseries in the country. Um, and they've got a lot of great videos on YouTube talking about that stuff. Dealing with tomato fruit worms without using an insecticide. Um, like I talk about my channel, I don't use insecticide, pesticide, herbicide. I use nothing. I don't spray anything. Birds are going to be your best help for getting rid of any type of worm. Man, that sun's killing me. And so, I just keep preaching the diversity of crops, diversity of animals. The more balanced the ecosystem is in your yard or your farm, the better off you're going to be with pest and disease. It's not going to eliminate everything, that's for sure, and especially in certain areas of the country, that will definitely not work. So, I'm about to move to Tennessee, which is a place that has a lot more insect and animal pressure. So I'll be able to develop more techniques to talk to you guys about with that. But beyond that, if you want to use an insecticide, and then BT or spinosad are some of the, least bad. They're a biocide, so life poison, life killer. So you got to keep that in mind. They're going to kill good guys, so it's going to throw off the balance a bit. But those are kind of my thoughts about it. But if you want to look into natural pesticides, then check out Jadam. Jadam ultra low cost agriculture is a way to create pesticides and fungicides from plants and sulfur. And that is the best solution I've ever seen for farmers because it's very cheap and very effective and very, essentially it's non-toxic to humans. It will hurt beneficials, but if you're going to lose a crop or you have in really intense bug pressure, you're going to have to use a pesticide. So there are definitely times and places to use these tools. I just don't think that insecticide, fungicide should be like this go-to thing that we immediately run to use. And we should be using a whole tool belt of approaches at the same time. And definitely, mimicking nature and diversity is like a giant part of that. Sam B, yeah, the Salanova. I mean, the Salanova is the classic. I mean, you can get a really heavy harvest on it. It produces really well. It looks great in a salad. It has great texture. It's a fantastic variety. I guess I'm just a little lazy and I hate bending over to harvest things. And I was trying to make my market garden like as little work as possible, basically on my body. So that's why I went that route. Brianna's asking about my move to Tennessee. So yeah, things have changed a bit. The whole virus nonsense really threw everything for a loop. So now what we're doing is we're going to stay in San Diego and kind of do some virtual shopping from there. We just applied to get pre-approved for our loan. So we're waiting to hear back on that. Then we'll know kind of what the price range we can qualify for is. And then move forward. And then, I want to try to get a home as quickly as possible. I believe me, I'm very bummed that I don't have property right now in the midst of all this madness. I'm hoping that the economy will hold out, or maybe we'll get a better price because the economy is going to tank really hard. Obviously, I don't want that to happen. That's a horrible scenario. But I just saw it's like 6 million unemployed people now, or 6 million lost their jobs, something like that. It's awful. So, but it hasn't changed my ultimate vision of what I want to do with my farm or what I want to do in the future. I want with this new Tennessee farm. My whole goal is to start a new farm, and then I want to display all these new techniques that I've been experimenting with, like Korean natural farming, jadam, even all the no-till stuff that I do in biochar and teas. And I want to have different plots where I can do different sets of experiments, and do soil test and plant tissue test and bricks test and soil compression test. All these different things I can do to show evidence of these natural techniques being extremely effective. Especially, I want to try out the jadam pesticides, and I'm really curious to see how effective they will be and how they can be used to on a larger scale, really. And a lot of these, I want to mess around with scaling up some of these natural nutrient creation methods, because I believe that these are ways that we can change large-scale tractor-based farming. Unless we get, really realistically, tens of millions of small-scale farmers, we still need these large farms in order to feed most people. Unless, I don't know, a lot of things have changed now after this virus. A lot of people are very interested in growing their own food. If we could go back to what it was like 100 years ago, where everybody had a garden and, we were growing, regular people were growing, 30-40% of the food that they ate. Some people raised animals and chickens, then, that would change the whole system a lot. I'd love to see everything a lot more localized. It would bring a lot more freedom to people, get a lot less of this top-down government control nonsense out of our hair. If we will become more self-reliant, and just interacting with our communities and helping each other privately versus having the state steal from us. Kira's exciting about growing from seed. That's awesome. And once you get good at growing from seed, it's just awesome, because now, you can grow very inexpensively. And if you can save your own seed too, then I just love the feeling of security that I always know how to collect the seed. And if I want, I can always, have my own seed, and I'll never run out, at least for a home production system. Now, if you're doing it for profit, obviously, like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't save you money to save your own seed, but you want to buy your own seed for sure. The economy of scale just doesn't work. But for home gardeners, homesteaders, saving your own seed is super cool and super fun. And as you save the seed over time, and if you're selecting for genetic diversity and things like that, your seeds will adapt to your area and every year they're going to get better and better. And they'll grow and resist pest and disease better, do better in more extreme temperature ranges too. So that's one really, really cool thing about saving seed. And so getting good at starting from seed is just super essential. Yeah, thanks, Fix It, Jeff. Yeah, hit the like button if you guys don't mind. Smash it if you're into that, you know what I mean? I don't know why that became a thing on YouTube. Smash the like button, but it definitely helps the algorithm and all that stuff. When a video gets more likes, YouTube will like display that to your homepage or on your side thing more, and there's a higher likelihood of someone clicking on your video. Thanks again to Matt at Drag Strip Farm. He's got a really cool YouTube channel. He's been putting out like some cool videos recently, doing some different tours, and he's building a market garden out in Florida. Yeah, he's the moderator that you guys see right there, helping us out, giving us good information. So everybody say thank you to Matt over at Drag Strip and give him a follow. Little Mountain Life, thinking about putting some coco coir in the raised beds. Yeah, it's a great substitute for peat moss. I like, 25 to 30% of the mix can be cocoa. I think something like that's really good. It'll turn out well for you. Make sure the cocoa you get is like the rinsed kind, so that like all the salts are washed out of it. Wasim, yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I've done things on carrots. I've done things on beets. I've done things. I think some of my really old videos where I still had my little home garden, I did some stuff on potatoes, but not that much, honestly. So like I really focused my videos mostly up until now, the last 3 years have been focused on market gardening and growing food for profit because that was my major source of income. So yeah, radishes, beets, carrots. I've talked about all that. Wisconsin Wonder Garden. Oh, that's cool. You're looking to sell your condo and get property. That's fantastic. I mean, I couldn't recommend moving out of the city more, especially right now. And I think everybody is like seeing how fragile everything is and how everybody's freaking out and all of that sort of thing. And being in the city is not going to be a safe place to be, in my opinion. Getting out on some land where you can feed yourself and your family, and country people are a lot more uh, better minded, I guess I would say, a little more stable minded. They're not as influenced by the news and television and all that, I would guess. No problem, Thomas. Happy to do this. I love talking about all this. It's super fun. Cameron's asking, have you thought about what you would be doing if the COVID situation, if I was still in business? Well, I'd have to switch everything over to either farm pickup or CSA or like veggie box delivery. And that's what we're seeing all these farms doing. And all my customers were already private. It was either farmer's market or private. So it wouldn't have been that big of a shift. And I'll just give an example of my buddy Jared at Jared's Real Food, who he's the one I started farming with a long time ago. And he built his business basically all CSA style, like delivery and pickup at farm. And his business has mostly spread a word of mouth for almost the whole time of life of his business, because when you grow the highest quality food, people really respond to that. And not to mention he's an awesome guy, and um, you know his farm's amazing, so that also all plays into it as well, for sure. And your whole story of who you are and why you farm the way you do, that's a big part of marketing um, and why people want to buy from you in the first place. And then when you have the healthiest veg ever grown, no till, no pesticide, no nothing, it's, you can't get better food. So yeah, that's how I would switch. And what Jared did is now he's doing a farm stand at his farm every Saturday. He was at two markets. He can't do that. Restaurants you can't sell to right now. And now he's got lines of people. I went there one time to go buy some veg, and he's got people waiting in huge lines to get his veggies. I was there. My mom went there recently, and in the first hour, he had like 50 people, 50 families coming to buy food. He can't even keep up anymore. He's growing 2.25 acres, I think. He can't grow enough food now. So it is an excellent time to be a farmer, in my opinion, and at least growing some of your own food. So everything just has to switch private, which is a really great thing, honestly. And it'd be great if more farmers markets were private. Unfortunately, so many of them are done in the city, and there's lots of regulations, and you have to have a huge insurance policy, and they make it real expensive. But if we were on private land, they wouldn't be able to shut us down. And they shut down farmers markets, but they let grocery stores stay open. That doesn't even make sense. You're getting all this poison food, but you can't get that food that's actually going to improve your immune system. So I'd love to see more privatized farm models in the future for sure. And this situation is helping to push things in that direction. And it's just a lot more stable, and we have a direct connection and communication to our customers. Gosh, do I have any videos on saving seed? I don't think I made a specific one about it, but it's somewhere in one of my videos that I mentioned it. But I'll give you my best tip that I've ever gotten. I learned from watching a YouTube video out there somewhere. I can't remember what channel it was, but There's these bags on Amazon called organza bags, and people use it to like put jewelry in and stuff. But it's like this mesh bag, so it's breathable and it has a drawstring. And what you do is you wait for whatever plant that you want to get your seed on. So it's going to produce the flower, it's going to blossom right, it's going to get pollinated. And after you see the flowers like fall off or die, then you take the organza bag, wrap it around the section of where the flowers were, tighten the bag, tie it off, and then it's going to develop the seed inside of that bag. And when the seed dries out and it's like ready to harvest, it's just going to fall right into the bag. It's beautiful. And then you don't have to do anything. You just come by. You don't have to like think about, oh man, I got to go grab those seeds before they fall into the ground. They just fall into the bag. And then you can just cut the stem, take the bag away, and then go and, separate the chaff or whatever it's called, the extra plant material from the seed. That's like been amazing for me. So that's how I would recommend saving seed, at least on a small scale. On a large scale, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. Mr. or MR is asking, what are your thoughts on grow bags? I'm a pretty big fan now, actually, after using them I did them for one season because I got some from Bootstrap Farmer. They were 10 gallons, and I have a few videos about my grow bag setup, and I could even recommend them for market gardeners. I was able to pay back my investment and double my money in that first season, and I grew peppers. I had 150 bags. I did peppers, a lot of peppers, like bell peppers. Those sell the best at market. Hot peppers for me were not very profitable. Just not enough people are into hot peppers. Maybe you're in a certain area of the country where they're into that. But I did kale, chard, collards, cilantro, dill, like a bunch of my like birotational, like longer growing crops. I threw in those, and then that opened up more beds in my market plots for the more quick turnover crops. So that was really excellent. And I like about grow bags is that you can move them to certain other areas to take advantage of microclimate. So I'm into them. I think they're better than pots. Amorin's asking, how do you organize your succession planting when growing a large variety of things? Well, taking good notes. I developed like a Excel spreadsheet dealio for my market and for my field. And then I just tracked how much I was selling at the market. I gauged a lot of it just on my sales, actually. Like if I couldn't grow enough of one crop, then I would plant an extra bed of it. And a lot of like the way I planted, it's just in my head. And like that's how Jared does it too. It's just like you get a feel for what you need to plant to have enough. Um, I don't know. It's like cooking without a recipe, if that makes any sense. But you kind of get a feel for how often. Like I knew I needed to plant heads of lettuce every like 3 weeks, basically 2 or 3 weeks. So, because as by the time I was harvesting the last heads on one bed, another bed would be coming in and ready to harvest again. Or like but it changes throughout the season, like spring, summer, and fall, like because there's different amounts of light, there's different amounts of time that it takes to grow those crops. So it's like paying attention constantly to how long it takes to grow things, taking notes of that is really good. The better notes you take, the easier it'll be to track and be successful at succession. Um, but it's something that comes with experience. Succession and getting that timing right is a part of becoming a really good farmer, and it comes with time. One thing that an advantage for me about being in San Diego is that we can grow year round. I never stop farming. There is no winter. So I got a lot more experience really quickly in the 5 years that I farmed in San Diego because I never stopped. It was 24/7 for 5 years. So that may have helped me to develop that like pacing and that ability to like not need so much of a recipe. Hey Mira, glad to see you back in the live stream. Um, Matt's asking, when should I plant my tomato and cucumber seedlings? Well, I don't know because I don't know where you live and I don't know the temperature and I don't know your microclimate. Um, After your first frost state, like what do they say? It's usually like 2 weeks or like as 2 weeks after your first frost state, something like that is like a safe, pretty safe time to do it. So timing the growing inside, and timing it so that they'll be ready for about that period of time. And you want to do it like 2 weeks after the last frost rate, just because sometimes you get that random freeze that'll come in, and then people who are more in the northern area, like you guys can get a freeze maybe a month after last frost. I don't even know. Like colder environments are much more tricky. Uh-oh, our partakers not playing nice. Thanks, Matt. Um, ban them for life if you need to, by the way. Katie says, first year gardening, our strawberries aren't looking good. How often should I water them? And do they need mulch for from texture from cold weather? Um, well, I'm not sure why they're not looking good. Make sure that they're obviously grown in really good soil. Good compost is always great to plant right into. Um, Make sure your moisture level's good. How often should you water them? Well, in the beginning of a planting, it's you're going to water them a bit more often because that plant doesn't have a very good root system yet, and it's developing that root system. And I like to recommend to water deeply less often so that the water percolates deeper down into the ground, and then by waiting a few extra days, then the plant's roots are going to try to seek out that water deeper down and spread out wider, especially if there's really good organic matter and biology down there. That's another way to encourage the roots to travel further down. And I don't know what part of the country you're in, so I don't know if you need frost protection or not. You may. And if you do, frost blankets are a great way to do that. Agribon is like kind of the best brand of those. Yeah, Thomas, having secluded land, that's what it's all about. That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah, Cameron, I do think that social media is good for marketing. I think it's good to have it out there, especially if you don't have a website yet. Just having an Instagram is a really easy way to say, hey, customer, if you want to go see what my farm looks like, go check out my Instagram. Having a website is good though, because a lot of people don't have Instagrams, especially if they're a little bit older. Um, that's why if you have a Facebook and an Instagram, I think it's smart because if you post on Instagram, there's the option of just posting automatically to Facebook, and that way anybody who doesn't have the Instagram can still go check your stuff out there, and then eventually get yourself like a real simple website, like what are those called, Squarespace, or one of those real easy to build ones that are real cheap but look really beautiful. Get some good pictures on there, get your story of your farm on there, how you grow, all that good stuff, and people do really respond to that. And I've gotten good feedback from social media stuff from my different customers, and doing the Instagram stories is really cool, like especially on market day. And you can kind of show, hey, this is what I'm harvesting right now, check it out, and or take a picture of what you're harvesting, and that'll get people excited. And I've had even customers tell me, I came to the market today because I saw your Instagram post and it reminded me about you. So it can help translate into sales too. I don't spend tons of time with social media though. There's a lot of other important things to do on the farm rather than that. Ash S is asking, this is a good question. New gardener, can I put weeds in my compost? Yes, but you got to be careful. So weeds, as long as they haven't gone to seed, then it's pretty safe. But keep in mind that if you put weeds and you're not able to tell if it did go to seed or not, there may be seeds. So, and if you're not heating your compost up to like around 140, those seeds will be alive and stay in that compost. And then when you put the compost out on your beds, weeds will come up. Um, so I have a couple of videos about making your own hot compost, which might help you. You could also do a separate compost pile where you put weeds only, and let that be a cold or it should try to be a hot compost pile. But if you can't get it up to heat, let it just the material like build it up to a big enough size pile, and then just let it sit there for like a year. And over that year, most of those weed seeds will die. Some of them may stick around if they're pretty strong ones, but that's another way you can try to deal with it. Or you can also so it's a little more advanced, but you could like ferment the weeds with like bokashi, or you could or another way you can do is like like a jadam, like a liquid fertilizer, which means you would put all the weeds into water and let it sit there and decompose in the water. And then that's a way you could pull out the nutrients, and then you could dilute that like 10 to 1 or 1 to 10 parts water, 1 part the fertilizer, and then water that out into your garden. I have a video on that as well called like comfrey fertilizer or something. So those are some ways I would deal with weeds if you want to turn it into nutrients. Cameron, yeah, the whole plastic with salad mixes and stuff, I honestly don't have a good solution for that. I still haven't yet to see a good solution for that. Other than if you can buy the compostable containers and the bags. I like the compostable containers for microgreens. That sort of makes sense, but they're so expensive that you have to add on like 50 cents to $1 per box. And with competition, it makes it a little tricky. But if you can explain that to your customers, then they may be excited about that. Now, the compostable bags for like your salad mix, um, it's hard, like you can't see through them, so that makes it harder to sell too. But I would say one thing, my buddy Andrew of Indian Summer Farms, he does a little salad bar, and I think this is a great solution, man. Actually, if you don't want to use plastic, and so people can bring their own reusable bag. Of course, a lot of people don't bring that, so you still have to provide them a plastic bag. Otherwise, how are they going to get it home and have it not wilt? But if people want to bring their own bag, you have the salad bar out there, and what you can do is put like he in the summer he put like towels down and a cooler packs underneath, and then or like some really cold water, something like that, and then another like bin that sat in a metal bin that sat inside of the water, so that bin would say cool, and then occasionally mist the leaves with a spray bottle, and then people just take tongs and put it into their bag. And that's another way to do it that I've seen that actually is that's a pretty cool way to do it. Like in winter and fall and spring, it's definitely doable. Summer is a little bit harder to pull it off because of the heat. So those are like my few suggestions. If the government never made hemp illegal 100 years ago, we wouldn't be using oil-based plastics. We wouldn't be using so much. We wouldn't be chopping down all these trees and all this sort of stuff. So I'm hoping that now that hemp is legal in all 50 states, that we'll have such a huge production of it that'll lower the cost of plant-based plastics and things like that. Hopefully, the market will bring a solution to that because lots of people really want a solution to the plastic bag issue. Ooh, Sean's saying if there's a navel orange tree that's infested with termites. Well, man, you may just have to lose the tree, or I don't know where they're eating, but if you can cut out the section of the tree where they are and then burn it, that would be another way. There may be some type of organic, spray you could use that would keep them away, but I actually don't know what would be good for that. Other than looking into Jadam and maybe trying out some of their sulfur-based pesticides on them, I bet that would work on them, but they may come back. And once that tree is already super weak, it may be in a state that it'll be hard to recover from. But the first thing I would do is just like remove the diseased and bad part where they're at. If they're in the trunk, then I think it might be better just to remove it and burn the tree to get rid of those termites there so they don't move somewhere else. Oh, Leslie, hey, I used to work with you. That's so cool. Um, I haven't moved to Tennessee yet, but we're shopping for homes right now. If you have no clue how to start gardening, I just did a five-part series all about the basic skills of gardening this week, and it's like the last few videos on my channel. If you want to check it out. Oh, Manny, this is such a good thing to talk about. He's asking, why do weeds thrive just about in any climate while other crops are so delicate and need so much care? So, think about this. So, the whole earth, the soil, it always wants to be covered, it never wants to be bare soil. And there's something called ecological succession. Search that on Google and you can see some models and pictures of this. But basically, all of life, all of plant life, is trying to go from bare dirt, rock, all the way up to your redwood forest, your rainforest, like your peak ecosystem. And the weeds are the first stage of that. They can grow in just about any environment with little water. Their seeds germinate like super easy. And that's their job. Their job is to go there and cover the soil and start that ecological succession process off. And then as time moves on, things go into, brassicas and, small bushes and shrubs, and then trees, softwoods, hardwoods, and then eventually the end stage, like forest. And so there's a lot more to talk about with that. But vegetables, they are also the vegetables that we eat. They've all been bred over time for specific traits and properties and for their fruits, for their roots. So by doing that, we've bred out some of the wildness of them, and they've, so they've lost some of their resistance to pest and disease and things like that. You can see some wild versions of different plants out there. There's maize. This was the original name, like for corn. There's wild versions of that. There's wild tomatoes. There's, of course, blackberries and, all sorts of that sort of stuff that are wild and they're crazy prolific. Anyways, if you want to learn more about that, it's called ecological succession. Cool. You guys are talking about like different solutions for the plastic bags. That's awesome. I don't know a ton about the different solutions out there, so I'm learning from you guys right now. I have to look up that stuff you're talking about. Am I gonna grow hemp in Tennessee? Yeah, I might. I don't know though. I think you might need a license. I mean, I'll do it anyway. Honestly, I don't really care what the government says. It's a food source, and you can make CBD oil out of it. You can eat the seed. You can juice the leaves, the buds. It has fantastic nutrition in it. But omega 3. It's one of the few plants that has omega 3s. It has very good protein. I think it might have the full amino acid chain for plants in a plant protein. I could be wrong about that, but it is a superfood. And hemp has a lot of amazing uses. It's a bioremediating plant. So yeah, I definitely would be into it. Kyle's asking what made San Diego difficult to do market farming. It didn't. There was nothing difficult about. Well, okay, I guess two things maybe. Land is expensive, which means you're forced to lease. Luckily, you can do leased land very cheaply and easily. How do I see? I think I got a super chat. I want to make sure I answer that. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, thanks, Leslie. You're awesome. um, so, so San Diego, what made it difficult was finding land that you can get for free. I don't think it's that hard though, because my second plot that I got, I put out some advertising on nextdoor.com and Craigslist, and a ton of people reached out to me and said, I showed them my YouTube though and my Instagram, but if you have really good pictures of your farm, you can do the same thing and then say, hey, I want to grow food. Like, do you want a beautiful garden? And then you'll get free veggies every single week, like $30 of veggies every week. Would you like that? And I had 20, 30 families reach out to me and say, hey, Stephen, please come to our house and do this. With that agreement where, you pay for all the infrastructure, you pay for the water, you pay for everything, but the land is just, they allow you to use it. Um, and Beyond that, water is expensive in San Diego. That's maybe the other issue. But other than that, San Diego is one of the easiest places to grow food in the world, in my opinion, because of our very, very nice climate. If you're in certain areas of San Diego, it doesn't even freeze. Um, Certain areas, if you're in the valleys, it will freeze. It will go up to like 100. But that can be dealt with. If I was getting hit hard with aphids, definitely would plant. I would have other flowers, marigolds, alyssum, borage, comfrey, a bunch of stuff, herbs, lavender, different things like that to bring in beneficials. And aphids, you can spray them off with a high-powered spray. One thing that's really important is just if your plants are in their peak health, they will resist them much easier. And You can make some sprays out of because they're a soft-bodied insect. You can make some like cayenne pepper and oil sprays, things like that. So there's some really natural ways to deal with them. If you have a small enough garden, you can just come in there and smush them. That's another fantastic way. Um, but yeah, I guess those are my few things. But yeah, you want to attract the ladybugs. They're one of the best. Their larvae eat like 100 aphids a day or something like that. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, Josh is asking, do you have any stretching or exercise routines for market gardening? That's a great question. I don't really. I should do that more. But yeah, I would do like different lower back stretches for sure. Uh, It'd be kind of weird to lay on the ground and show you right now. But the one where you have one leg, you're laying down, you have one leg out forward, you throw the other leg over, and you put your arms out like this. I really like doing that one. Or if you bend your knees and bend over, it's like a yoga stretch, I think. That always gave me a good stretch in my lower back. I think the number one thing for maintaining yourself, stretching is very good. I think that you should do that. Is just making sure that you have good posture the whole time that you're growing, and using tools that are going to help you with your posture. Like for me, I use the like a scuffle hoe for a long time to take out garden beds, and then I switched over to a wheel hoe, like the salad mixes. I did so much salad mix, it's a lot of effort to get that out of the bed, and that switch alone really helped my back and my body, because you have to bend over slightly to use the scuffle hoe, but with the wheel hoe, not only it's like you're able to do it 5 times faster, but you can stand up straight and use your legs and your arms and your chest muscles. So I guess those are a couple tips. Don't bend over with straight knees. That's another one. Bend your knees first and like hinge at the hips when you bend over. Um, so good ergonomics while you're working, I think, is like almost more important. And then stretching is great to help relieve some like of your pain or discomfort that you might be having. And Roscoe's asking about drip. The drip video is coming out tomorrow. Would you recommend drip emitter or drip tape for raised beds? 14 raised beds. Well, my video tomorrow, actually, I'm going to show you guys emitter and drip tape irrigation. I personally am a fan of using drip tape in like all situations because it's very cheap, it's easy to replace, it works, and I find that it does not clog as easy as emitter line. Emitter line like clogs much easier. Emitter line's great because it's small. It doesn't like bunch up as much or like contract or expand as much like drip tape does. Drip tape is a little more annoying, but drip tape is much cheaper. I think the spread of the water is a bit wider and better. And I showed you guys tomorrow how to build my market garden style on and off system with that's also flow through and on raised bed. So check out my video that's coming out tomorrow, and I hope that it'll help you decide on what you want to do. Because I really do like the emitter, the 1/4 inch emitter lines too. Like, I think it's really great, and it's really easy too. There's just pros and cons, I guess. Oh, Kayla's saying, yeah, the license for hemp in Tennessee is $250. It's ridiculous to grow a plant. Get out of here. But those people, those people are going to grow it, and they're growing it to sell the end product and all that stuff. But a license is just the government stealing your rights and then selling it back to you. That's all a license is. It doesn't protect anyone. Just in case you were curious about my thoughts on that. The other day, your live stream froze. Okay, so well, let me see if I can answer it. Is it a good time to start a market farm or not because of the virus? I would gauge maybe your local area. Like, what are the other farmers doing? Like, are they having so many customers that they can't keep up and they can't grow enough food? If that's the case, then definitely, I think it is. And I think it is a good time to be a farmer right now because all my friends and the people I know online, they have been able to switch from selling to restaurants to private customers like pretty relatively easily and be able to still sell all their stuff. So I think that there's still an opportunity. I maybe start smaller than you were planning on doing, but I think there's a huge demand and need for really healthy grown food. And people also, they're worried about the grocery stores running out of food. I think for your personal self, having that extra uh, food production going is very smart. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. 6 million people are out of a job. This is a nightmare scenario. So, Trump said they're still going to prevent businesses till April 30th. So that is not a good sign for what's going to happen to the economy. This is going to be a giant jolt, and having food security, I think, is going to be really important. I pray it doesn't get bad, but I would have as much extra food as you can. Believe me, I am bummed. I don't still have my farm in Lemon Grove. I just have, I'm at my parents right now trying to buy a property and move right now. So it's like, I really got stuck in between. If I had land, I'd be planting like crazy right now, personally. Asheville, North Carolina still has the farmers market, but they're restricting the number of people. Yeah, it's ludicrous. This whole virus is ludicrous. For termites. Oh, Bill Mollison. Yep, he's the guy who wrote Permaculture 1. He's him and forgot the other guy's name, but they're the ones who wrote the book on permaculture. Very interesting. Yeah, exactly, 49. That's, hard spray on those aphids will work really good. Bradley's asking, how can I start a market garden bed, but I don't have a lot of money, but I do have a lot of dirt that I can use. Now, what do you mean by dirt? Because is it good soil, or is it just like topsoil or fill dirt or something that it doesn't have biology or nutrients in it? When I started my market garden, I didn't have a lot of money either, and I did cover crops to get my initial fertility and all that, and that really worked well. So I could definitely recommend cover crops. But if you don't have a lot of money, you just got to start smaller and just do the best with what you have. If you do have good soil, then just use that to make beds and go from there. Or if you have a lot of not so good dirt, make beds out of it and then cover crop it. And that will help you a lot. Fire ants, not too much. They don't like water, so you can kind of drown them. Hey Maurice, how's it going, man? Hope everything's going well. I've seen your garden's looking great. Yes, definitely. I think this is the time for small farmers to shine. This is what we're here for. We're here to feed the community, and that is what it's all about. Watering for direct seeding. Oh yeah, I can definitely speak on that. Kyle says, yeah, for direct seeding. So if you're using like a push seeder, and should I use overhead or drip? I've done it both ways. In San Diego, because it's so dry, we don't really get rain except one part of the year. I really enjoyed using drip and overhead. So what I would do typically is my bed would already be pretty wet from the previous crop. So I just prep that bed, put new compost, seed directly into it, put my drip tape out, run the drip tape, like soak the bed. And if the bed's already wet, it doesn't take that much more water to get it totally soaked. And then from that point on, I would just use overhead because only, like a 5 minute blast of overhead would keep the top inch layer wet so that um, I wouldn't have to waste a bunch of water using the drip tape because you know that the spread of the drip tape isn't amazing if you're doing like a greens bed and the entire bed is covered with seed. If I lived in a place that it rained more, I maybe wouldn't use drip except on like tomatoes or things in a caterpillar tunnel. And then I would just use overhead. I'd bring it out when I needed to use it when it didn't rain. Like I've been thinking about that for Tennessee because it rains every single month typically, or maybe you just miss like a month of rain in like September, I think, or August is when that happens for them. Then you can bring out the overhead or drip. I don't know. It depends on the climate, but those are a few thoughts about it. Uh, Brandon's asking about the nutrients I put in my watering can. I put a couple of them in the video description, like a fish emulsion seaweed, and if you want to like the nutrients, like the Korean natural farming ones that I made, there's a bunch of great videos made by Chris Trump, and he breaks down how to make all the different inputs for Korean natural farming. If you want to make jadam nutrients, like that are mostly made from plants, and it's like more anaerobic fermentation. Young Sung Cho wrote a great book called Jadam Ultra Low Cost Agriculture. I did an interview with him. If you want to learn a little bit more about that first, it's that you can go check out on my channel. But I haven't made any videos about Korean natural farming yet, and I have like 30 videos or more than that, even that I still need to edit from my market garden. So I'm just like way behind on all my stuff right now, but I will be, once I get to Tennessee, I'm going to make a ton of videos about Korean natural farming and jadam and show everybody how to do that stuff. Yes, some rando says Me Gardener has a dollar pack seed store. That's fantastic for home gardeners. I think Me Gardener is doing an awesome job with his seed company. I definitely would recommend him for just you're doing a little garden. Yeah, you don't need to buy a ton of seed. Bradley says, yeah, it's just topsoil and clay, I'd say make your beds with it and then cover crop it. That's going to be the cheapest way that you'll be able to get fertility, in my opinion, other than doing jadam. If you want to look into jadam, because that you could make liquid fertilizers and microbial inoculants for very cheap. Cameron's asking about fermented plant juice and if I see a noticeable boost in my plants. I haven't done enough side-by-side trials to like really say like, yeah, I noticed something and things like that. But, in Korean natural farming, any increase of biology or available nutrients or things like that is going to help. And, I've talked to and read a lot from a lot of cannabis growers because that's where Korean natural farming is used a lot extensively. And I've talked to growers that just use KNF inputs only on their cannabis plants. And from the results that they're telling me and I've seen pictures of, it absolutely works. So that's how I know that it's real and that it works. But that's what I hope to do at my new farm in Tennessee, is to really trial a lot of that stuff with evidence backing, and videos of showing it, the results and all that stuff. Like after I would spray my teas or FPJ, yeah, it's hard to like really see. Like if the plant was already really healthy and your soil's already really healthy, it's hard to like see a big difference. But if you've ever sprayed a plant that was kind of lagging or was having some issues, like I have seen it respond, like those plants respond. Rashid, if you have access to water in the desert, should you start a small farm? Um, yeah, I mean, if you've got a well, a good well, I don't see why not. And there's been some people out there, I wish I could think of some names, but there's people who have done amazing work out in the desert. Like if you just look up greening the desert, there's been a lot of amazing projects in Africa, the Arab Peninsula, the Middle East, China, different deserts where they've changed the desert, and using different special watering techniques and different plants. They've replanted those there. And then when it does rain, it absorbs a lot more of the water into the soil. They can start converting the soil to have more organic matter. And then over time, they do what's called re-greening the desert. And um, if you get a bunch of trees overhead, when it gets really hot, you won't have to use as much water. You can start growing plants that are better off. I mean, in the desert, like they use a ton of greenhouses and shade houses, and that's how they're doing it out there, from what I've seen. Um, and I don't know what your market's like. If you can sell the veg for a high price and things like that, then I you know see what your business model might look like and go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna answer a few more questions, but it's 6 o'clock now, and we've got one more live stream tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. So if there's any more remaining questions that I hope to be able to answer, then we'll ask it there. So I'll just get through these last few here. Um, oh, Sybil. Yeah, do you have any videos on how to talk about how much to charge for vegetables? That's something those are some videos I really want to make, marketing, uh, yeah, talking about pricing and all that sort of stuff. No, don't undercut the grocery store. You need to price your stuff above the grocery store. You should be charging another dollar or two per bunch or per pound in the grocery store for sure. Um, I like to look at the grocery store organic prices and then charge above that, because if I don't know how you're growing, but if you're growing with only natural nutrients and no sprays, you're far beyond the organic at the store. The organic at the store, they spray organic pesticides and herbicides, and they till the ground too. So they're not even growing in living soil. If you're growing in living soil, the product you're offering is far better, and you're harvesting within like the same day or within a day. Your customers getting the produce, which means you I don't know if you know, but like if you harvest something, it immediately starts losing nutritive value immediately. I know I've looked at studies where like spinach, for instance, the folate after 7 days it loses 50% of the folate. So there's a ton of benefit that we offer our customers by doing the service that we do. And so yeah, like some rando says, don't sell your products short. What we do is so far superior, and you got to explain it to your customers too. Some people at the farmers market, they come up to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how expensive this is." Or it was only a very few people. It was usually people like from like Russia or some other country where they're used to getting organic produce really cheaply, and so for them it was like a big shock. But if you're living in, you're in San Diego, one of the higher priced areas to live in the country, not to mention, this is the best product you could possibly get when it comes to food. The price should reflect that. Um, Maurice is asking if you have a non-aerated compost tea. Then I would just do more like a compost extract, where you just dump it into water and then just mix it up and then use it. Just water it in right after that. That's what I would do personally. But just bubbling it, and then feeding in like microbial and fungal foods just helps to expand the population of all those guys, and you're getting more nutrients into that water that you'll eventually spray or irrigate or water in to your plants. What lettuce mixes do you suggest? Minus arugula, kale, bok choy, and mustard. Um, Honestly, I think those are the best ones. Like I did all of those, and like also beet greens. Beet greens are pretty good too. But I just noticed that most people they really gravitated towards the salad mix. Okay, spinach. That's the other one. So so I did a salad mix, and then I usually would sell two or three side greens. And so arugula being what the most popular basically, and like spinach or tatsoi. I always had problems growing spinach in San Diego for whatever reason, so I exclusively grew tatsoi, and I was able to grow that year round. And it always went on all my salad mixes. So I grew all these so arugula, tatsoi, kale, beet greens, and then I would have a 5 lettuce blend. Each of those were a separate bed. And then I would blend all that together for my salad mix, but I would always harvest a little bit extra for arugula, tatsoi, and beet greens. And then I would sell that separately in bags. So people would buy that because they want to make an arugula salad or they want to toss it in a stir fry, things like that. I would say the other maybe mix that you might want to try is what's called a braising mix. So something that's specifically for stir frying, and you could sell it like that. But for me, I noticed arugula and some sort of spinach, whether it be tatsoi or actual spinach, those were the best like single greens by themselves to sell. But salad mix is the king. And I've got a bunch of videos on making a salad spinner, a salad bubbler, and the drying table. You need all of those if you're going to do cut and coming in greens, because harvesting or washing and prepping and like all that takes most of the time, and you need it if you want it to be like actually profitable because of how much labor it takes to do all that stuff. Best cover crop, I think, is a more diversified cover crop. So it's got a legume, a grass, a brassica, a tillage radish, maybe some wildflowers or some clover in there. And it's going to create more diverse biology, more, the grass puts deep carbon, tillage radish penetrates and, really breaks up the ground, puts in a ton of nutrients. So, like I'd say 5 or 6 different varieties for me is what I like and what I've seen work really well for other people. If you just want to boost nitrogen, then just do clover and legume. Nice advice, Stephanie. That's really good advice for pricing. Crop rotation, not really. I honestly, the more I learn and the more I have seen other farms that have really good organic matter and are super, the soil management practices are really good, the less I actually think that crop rotation is necessary. And every time I planted a new crop, I always tried to plant a different family of crops though. But I was not super anal about it and super conservative about it. And I never had an issue. I know people that have grown tomatoes and peppers in the same beds for like 6, 8 years, but they're using special techniques, inoculating biology, and putting in compost. They have all the minerals, and that is going to prevent any issues. So if you do a couple crops that are the same right in a row, I honestly think it's fine. Eventually, though, I think it is a good idea. Yeah, rotate another crop through. That's fine. But if you're bringing back in nutrients and microbes, then in my personal opinion, I don't think it's necessary. But I want to experiment with that more. But I've seen a lot of people do long experiments of not rotating, and they're fine. I think a lot of that idea comes from because people were tilling and adding poisons to their fields for so long, and then that created a situation where there was outbreaks of nematodes or diseases because they destroyed the balance of nature. Just like if you take an antibiotic, it kills the good guys and the bad guys in your body. And that's why a lot of people who take antibiotics all the time, they'll get yeast infections or they'll get skin infections because of that. So the same thing is happening in the soil. The immune system of soil and human beings and all of life is very related. It's a similar pattern that we can learn from. Exactly. I have a tilther. I use it occasionally when I want to like incorporate some compost that didn't like fully break down, or I want to mix up maybe some azomite or maybe an organic fertilizer I put in or something like that. But I've tried to get further and further away from using the tilther when I don't need to use it. But let's say I wanted to run a paper pot transplanter, or I want to run my seeder and run the plow like deeper, and like I had a salad mix the time before, so it's pretty rough in there. In that case, then I like the tilther. Or sometimes certain people's soil structure isn't the best, so the tilther really makes it possible to use a seeder or a paper pot transplanter. So it depends on your situation for sure. But um, I'm always moving closer and closer to no dig, like the Charles Dowding style. I think that is the most superior way in terms of soil health. But depending on your context and what you're growing and why you're growing it, using machines and using more soil disturbing techniques may make way more sense than doing it Charles Dowding style, especially at scale. You got to use a BCS at a certain scale. You got to use a tractor at a certain scale. But a small market garden, like a quarter acre, no, you can do everything with hand tools. So, all right, guys, did an hour and 15. Please be sure to check out all the videos. If you're a new gardener, I did 4 out of the 5 parts are out. Tomorrow's about irrigation, but I did all the major skills and techniques and things that you're going to need to know if you want to get into growing your own food. I put links to those videos down in the description and to the other live streams that I did where I answered different questions like this. And yeah, please be sure to subscribe if you aren't already, and hit the notification bell if you want to see when I go live and things like that. Thank you guys so much for all your great questions, and really appreciate all you guys, and thank you for being interested in growing your own food or farming and all these things. The more people that we can get to farm, grow their own food, in my opinion, like the better our culture, the better our society will get, the more healthy that we will get. And that's one of the big reasons I'm taking time out of my day to do this, to do YouTube, to all this, because for me, this is the biggest way I see that we can impact everyone around us, is farming really healthy food and getting involved in our community and getting other people to be a part of this. So thank you for being a part of it with me, and hope to see you guys in a video soon. Check out my irrigation video if you want to learn more about that tomorrow. And next video I'll be putting out, I'm going to do a farm tour little video with Mountain Roots Farm out in Tennessee, one of my favorite farms in Tennessee that I was able to see. And then a bunch more market gardening videos. I've got about 30 that I still need to edit and put out from before I left my farm. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day out in your farm or your garden. Keep it up, keep growing, and I will see you guys in the next video.